All right, we'll get started. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to week 3. We're going to be doing Module 1, Lesson 3, Articles of Confederation. We talked a little bit about this last week. After the Declaration of Independence, the first version of government that the founding colonists were trying to establish, but they quickly had problems. So today is kind of quickly going over, the pros and cons of that. And then when we meet again, either Wednesday or Thursday, so this is period 4, we're an even class, so we'll meet on Thursday. Then we'll go further into detail about then the debate and then how they wrote the new Constitution that we have followed since then that we currently have today. All right. So Canvas should be open. So make sure, this is a good review for everybody. Make sure you're going to the announcements. Okay. Because remember, this is where I even put a little note leveling, take a deep breath. Everything's going to be all right. Every Monday and Friday, I do an announcement. Okay, just letting you know what needs to be done for that day. So making sure you get your attendance assignment done. I'll show you where those are here in just a minute. What was due yesterday. So same thing with Miss Rather, Module 1, Lesson 2, notebook was due and quiz. If you did the notebook or quiz yesterday, good morning. If you did the notebook or quiz yesterday, please resubmit your notebook to me just to make sure that it gets graded because Ms. Rather sent me grades, which I'll get those updated by the end of this week, okay? But if you submitted it like yesterday in Ms. Rather's class, it probably didn't get graded. So just resubmit it in my class. It won't be late. You'll be fine, all right? Just go ahead and submit the notebook for this class. Same with the quiz. If you took it yesterday, you might want to retake it today. It's set for 2 attempts, okay? Same notes that Ms. Rather gives. Actually, I make those notes, all right? So you're allowed to use your notes on the quiz. So same thing, but we just want to make sure you're getting credit for work that you did. So anything that you might have done yesterday, you want to probably resubmit it or redo it today in this class, okay? Yeah, if you did them a while ago, then you're probably fine, okay? Because she's really good about grading, getting the grade, having the grade be accurate. So if you did it like last week, then I wouldn't worry about it. She did a grade download, I believe, on Sunday. So I should have your accurate grade. It's just more yesterday because when they were leveling some work, if it hadn't been graded or calculated, yeah, so you shouldn't have to worry about it. Give me till Friday. I'm going to update grades. And if for some reason you see or you feel like your grade, you're not having all the grades you should, then just reach out to me and we'll figure it out. Okay. So if you did everything last week and you're like, I got all my stuff done, Module 1, Lesson 2, I'm good. Your grade should be fine. I need to go in and update those. So just give me a few days until Friday. And if you see any problems next week, I can always go back and we can fix it. Okay. But if you did it yesterday, I would resubmit it. It's not like you have to redo the work. You just resubmit the assignment, okay? And that way we can make sure it gets graded and you get credit for that. Any questions? I appreciate everybody's patience. I know it's frustrating when this happens for everybody, right? And you heard Missy say, this is her 3rd schedule change. Missy, you want to introduce yourself or say anything?
Hey, everybody. I'm Missy. Yeah, just like she said, this is my 3rd schedule change. I will be here half of the week. And then the other half, I'm with Miss Rather. So it sounds like I'll be listening to the same stuff, even though I'm not here. I'll have the same information.
Yeah.
And then I'll be back on Friday for small groups so that I can help you.
Okay. So real quick, Senior Sunrise is coming up on September 8th. So there's information there. So for you seniors, if that's something you want to participate in, these are always really fun. It's kind of a rite of passage. There's a lot of those kind of milestone things your senior year. So if this is something that you want to participate in, you need to RSVP for your seat, where the location is. And then if you need to arrange a ride or anything like that, that gives you a little bit of time. All right. So always make sure. I know that it's hard. That's why maybe trying to give, or maybe you can find somebody to carpool with, or if you have another friend from NBLA. I know it can be a little bit of no, that's okay. That's okay. Like I said, I know that, I know this is a little bit, we're trying to figure it out and stuff. So no worries. We'll work with you today. All right. And stuff. Like I said, so give me till Friday to update grades. If you see any issue with your grade, let me know. You might just have to resubmit something. We'll work it out. Okay. So nobody needs to stress. And if you see anything that's an issue, just email me and we will definitely make sure we handle it. Okay. Just like with Miss Rather, I post, let me let this, okay. I post on our lesson and recording page. So it's the very first module when you go to modules. Every week I post what we're doing each day, the review sheets, and then I post the session that I've recorded. So like this session I'm recording, I post them there. So for example, last week, it has what we did each day, review sheet. This should look just like Miss Rather's because we like I said, we create this stuff together and then we share it. Okay, it's the same review sheet. The recordings will just be different because it's me instead of Miss Rather, but it should be the same exact design. Okay, so hopefully, you know, if you're going, oh my goodness, this is a new class, I got to adjust. Hopefully just easing into it that it's going to be very much like what you were doing with Miss Rather. Okay. Remember, you can find review sheets on these pages. Okay. So I give them to you in class, but anytime if you lose it or if you just need to go back and find it, this is where you can always find those linked. Okay. And again, then those playbacks of class and when we go over things. All right. Really quick too, let me show you then where attendance is. Remember, every Monday and Friday, just like all your classes, you need to do attendance assignment. So you're going to go all the way past module 5. The reason I put them down here is I hate having them there. I got to scroll through them every single time. So I know it's a little bit of a scroll. Okay. So if you're regular attendance, you go past module 5. If you're regular attendance, then you go to August and you just fill in the day. All right. So like Monday, it would have been the 21st. This Friday, it's the 25th. Okay. And just like all your other classes, make sure it's done by noon. And it's the same attendance assignment that Ms. Rather has. Okay. If you're Scholar, it's here at the bottom. Same exact attendance assignment Smith Racer has. So for this week, you would be filling out this attendance assignment. Okay. Any questions?
No questions.
Okay. We're doing all right. I started yesterday. Okay. Sharif, let's chat at the end of class and just make sure I'm understanding what's going on and stuff. Okay. So we'll chat at the end of class real quick and make sure that you're good. Okay. And stuff. All right. Okay, we're going to jump in then. All right. So we are going to start the lesson this week, which is module 1, lesson 1, or lesson 3, Article Confederation. So we'll get the first couple done on the notebook, and then we'll continue working on it on Thursday, right? And if it's an odd class, then it would be on Wednesday. All right. So go ahead and get Canvas open if you haven't already. All right. We are going to skip the intro question today just because I did spend some time going over some review stuff. So just because for the sake of time, but normally we'll have that intro question where we get to chat a little bit and get to know each other. So we'll for sure do that on Thursday. Just want to make sure everybody knows what's going on. And if you're having a little bit of a panic about changing classes, no need to freak out. All right. We'll settle in and everything's going to be fine. All right. So Articles of Confederation was written after the Declaration of Independence. So the Declaration of Independence, remember, that's breaking up with Britain, okay, 1776, declaring war with the biggest, baddest army in the world. All of a sudden now it's like, whoa, we better get it together. If we're going to go to war, we need to have some kind of government. We just declared we have the right to form a government. Now they actually have to do it. So the Articles of Confederation, overall, it was a bit of a failure. There was a lot of things about it that didn't work. So there were some successes, there were some failures, okay? And we're going to watch this short video in a couple minutes. Let's get our notebook set up, and then let's get into today really understanding Articles of Confederation, why it worked, why it didn't. And then on Thursday, day 2, then we'll get into how it was replaced, the Federalist Papers, and then the writing of our Constitution that we have today. All right, so we're going to go into modules. So you're going to need to have Canvas open. Remember, so this is important when you're coming to class. Part of being prepared for class is just go ahead and have Canvas open, right? It's that because the faster you do that, then the more that we can get done in class and the more productive we can be. All right, we're in here till 49. All right, I don't know about you. I still like the Tuesday, Wednesday, I still have to have like the bell schedule open on a separate tab and stuff because I don't have all the times down yet. Okay, so we're going to go to the overview page, module 1, lesson 3. So just remember that for last week, we did module 1, lesson 2 notebook. Remember, we did the entire notebook in class between Tuesday and Thursday, and then you just had to take the quiz in your own time. And remember that you have that review sheet. So remember in accommodations that I've listed that you can use notes, okay? If it's going to be a separate tab, you just have to advocate to the proctor, let them know through messaging that you're allowed to have that tab open only for notes, okay? Or you can print them off, right? And you can show them paper copies. So you can do it digital or you can have paper, whichever works for you. Digital, though, you might have to talk to the proctor and just remind them to take a look to make sure that they keep that tab open if you need to. All right. Okay, let's go to overviews of Articles of Confederation. So we're going to analyze the U.S. Constitution, how it was established, how it worked at local, state, tribal level, credibility, so people that were involved, and interpretations and applications of it. All right, so our notebook, we're going to find on that notebook page. So we're going to click on the link. Copy the link once it's open. So remember the 3 things we need to do once it's open. You can rename it if you want. You're going to save it to your government folder. Okay, so just like you would in Ms. Rather's class. Okay, so if you need to, what you can do is you add that folder. So you put that plus sign. So you, like if I did add a shortcut or something, that I could pick where I want to put it on my drive. Okay, so I could create a folder if I wanted to. So remember, you should already have it, like you could put government, okay, check mark it, and then you can move the document there. And then last but not least, you're going to want to make it shareable. And you're going to want to do anyone with the link. Okay, so that way when you submit it, it's not let me pull it up. I'll pull it up for a second. Okay, anyone with the link, and that way when you submit it, then I can see it and I can grade it. All right, so go ahead and give me a thumbs up. Dylan, they wouldn't let you open it with a tab? Did you tell them to check the accommodations? Because it's written in the accommodations. Oh, you have to keep a list. Yeah, I know, right? Like constantly checking because it's like the times are kind of odd. As if Dylan, did you tell them to double check the accommodations? Can somebody else chime in that, because obviously I don't go into the system. Yes, so that's what I mean. They will I mean, if you're able to print them, it might just be easier that way. But if for some reason printing them, you know, and stuff like that, you can have a tab open. You just have to, because it will automatically close the tab. So that's what I'm saying. You have to message you have to message the proctor and like engage in that chat and say, hey, I have. Yes. So Sage, like you're saying, so are you understanding kind of? So yeah, it's automatically going to close the tab because it's supposed to. We're not supposed to have tabs open. Okay. No, and that's okay. If you can't print it, like I said, not all of us have a printer, if it's working or something like that. So you can have the tab open, or you could put it on another device. So if you have like an iPad or a phone or something like that, you can pull it up there. You would just need to show them. But that's where you have to engage in the chat with the proctor. Okay, so you guys seeing what Sage is saying? So you copy the link because they're going to close your tab. Okay, yeah, so if you're able to print them, it just might be easier. Okay, but if you can't print them, I don't want you to stress. You can still use your notes. Okay, it just takes that extra step. So you have to engage in the chat. So that's what I mean. Like you can print them, or if you have like an iPad or another device, you can pull them up on. Okay, because I list in the accommodations that you can do that. Yes, exactly, Annalise. Yes, so you have to open the chat with them and you say, hey, I'm allowed to have these notes. And this is where you have to advocate a little bit because their system is supposed to shut down the tabs because for security reasons, because they want to make sure people aren't cheating. But if you advocate to them and just say, and it's real quick, hey, please double check my accommodations. I'm allowed to have a tab open, and then have that copy and pasted ready to stick in there, then you should be able to open it back up. But they have to enable it on their side, right? See, so it automatically shuts your tab, so they have to enable it so it will open it. Is that making sense? So I know it's a little bit of work. It's the only, I can't change the fact that they close the tab. So there is a way to do it. You just have to be, and I know it's not fun to engage always, but this is part of welcome to adulting, you know. Sometimes we have to engage. Okay, yeah, because they will listen because it is written in the accommodations and people are verifying that. You just have to, because it is written explicitly in the accommodations that you're allowed to have them, that you can have a device. The only thing I ask for is no phone just because of like Siri and talking and stuff like that. But you can have like an iPad or another device, or you can have a tab. So you have a lot of options. So everyone should be able to find a solution. I'm a print kind of person. I like having things in front of me, but just want to make sure we're okay. All right. So let me know if you continue to have problems on it, but please make sure, yes, they're going to close the tab. So you're going to have to, like I've said, you're going to have to chat with the proctor and say, hey, please double check the accommodation. I'm allowed to have a tab open with the notes. Now that doesn't mean 10 tabs. That means 1 tab, right? So, all right. And again, that's for testing security. So, but you can be enabled to do that. Okay. All right. So we have our notebooks open. We're ready to go. Let's get started. All right. We're going to click on next. We're going to do our supporting question. We'll get our vocab done. And then let's watch our quick video on Articles of Confederation. So the supporting question for this. Okay. So after the Declaration of Independence was written in 1776, right? 1787, they get together and they have to form this new government. All right. Or not, sorry, 1787 is when they rewrote and stuff, when they rewrote the Constitution. But before that, they had this Articles of Confederation that they're going to use for almost a decade during the Revolutionary War, okay, to fund the war, to navigate through the war, and then also to come up with a treaty to end the war. So the question that we're going to answer over today and on Thursday is, how did the U.S. Constitution address the weaknesses of the Articles of Confederation? All right, so we're going to put that here in number 1. How the U.S. Constitution addressed the weaknesses of the Articles of Confederation. Then there's going to be 5 key vocab words. So just like we've done the last 2 weeks, right? We are going to fill out the context, and then we do a definition in our own words. So we can pull the context literally from the slide. So encroachment, inherent, precedent, ordain, implied are our 5 terms. Okay? So I'm going to go over to our notebook. Oops. Sorry, I wasn't sharing the tab. I'll go over those again. Encroachment, inherent, precedent, ordain, implied. So if you're watching this video playback, okay, then this is where you would pull them from. You can use these descriptions for your context clue. And then the definition in your own words, you're welcome to use what I verbally go over, or you can come up with your own. Okay? All right, so let's scroll down. Okay, so context clue. This one is for encroachment. So we're filling in part 2. All right, the great security against a gradual concentration of several powers in the same department consists of giving to those who administer each department the necessary constitutional means and personal motives to resist encroachment of the other. So in layman terms, like, what does that mean? Okay. Intrusions of a person's territory or rights. So this is try to divide power and also make sure we're not overstepping. As once people get power, they love to overstep that all the time. The most frequent used inherent power are the emergency powers where the president can declare war. Okay, so there's going to be 3 types of powers that are given to the executive branch when we talk about the writing of the Constitution. The Articles of Confederation, there was no executive branch. There was no president. There was no judicial branch. There was only Congress. There was only one unicameral branch. Okay, but in the new branch, which we'll talk more about on Thursday, these are the powers granted to, part of the powers granted to the president. So powers government has because it is the government of the United States. So because the president is the highest position, if we are going to go to war and it's an emergency and stuff like that, the president does have the authority to make a military decision. All right, many believe the Constitution must be strictly adhered to use past precedent to deal with current issues. So precedent is when we have a situation, how do we decide what to do with it if it's a legal case or something like that? So what they like to do is they like to use tradition, what have we done in the past, or standards. We have to create a standard. So let me use the example of like freedom of speech. Okay, so freedom of speech sounds like you can do whatever I want, right? No, wrong, right? There are limits to my freedom of speech. So I can say I don't like someone, right? That's a limit. But if I say I'm going to kill someone, that I'm not allowed to do. So even though in the Bill of Rights it says we have freedom of speech, we have to start to create boundaries for what some of these laws actually mean. Is that a free pass to do anything, or what are the boundaries of that freedom of speech? For example, so we would use maybe past cases or examples for a current case where maybe somebody says something that's really controversial, someone takes as a threat, and when we're trying to decide, are they within their freedom of speech or did they go too far? So we use precedent, past standards to try to interpret a current situation. All right, ordain, to do or establish this Constitution of the United States. So ordain is a fancy word for, yes, so it's a constant thing. That doesn't mean we always, doesn't mean freedom of social. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's just one example, right? That would be applied to so many different circumstances when things, that's why things eventually sometimes go to the Supreme Court, because we don't, again, a lot of people have opinions, but someone has to make a decision. Someone has to be in charge. So ordain is to establish or set. okay, to set the standard. And that's what our Supreme Court does, right? Every controversial topic, right, where it just goes back and forth and stuff, they're the ultimate authority to interpret the law. And that doesn't mean we always like it. The most money wins. There's also an argument for that, especially when it comes to campaigns and super PACs and stuff like that. So we will talk about that when we get to elections. The Constitution further expanded the power of the federal government by granting Congress implied powers in making legislation and declaring laws. So implied are powers understood to have because it is written within the law. So for example, if I have the power to produce money, then like an implied power is going to be that I have the power to establish a bank. So there's going to be lots. And there's 3 different types of powers that the government will have. And we'll go over more of those tomorrow. All right, let me give you a second to finish copying and pasting those over. Okay, give me a thumbs up once you have the supporting question done and you have the vocab done. Awesome. You guys are doing great. Okay. Like I said, the routine, it should be just like Miss Rather's, or if you've been with me the whole time. Yep. Take your time. It's there in the chat. Okay. I'll get started. I'm going to move on here just a minute. I can scroll up, but remember I copy and pasted everything into the chat. So you can go back up in the chat also. That's where you'll want to get it if you're copying and pasting. Okay. That's probably the fastest way to do it. Does that make sense? As I put it in the chat. Okay. All right, I'm going to jump back over into Canvas. So once we finished those slides, and again, if you're watching this playback, this is where you would pull it from, okay? Because you won't have access to the chat if you're doing the playback. All right, so this is where we do the body of the notebook, right? So let's take a look at the Articles of Confederation. The Articles of Confederation was the first version of the Constitution. So think, Articles of Confederation is a constitution. It was just the name they gave it. So it was our first version of a constitution. It failed. Okay, so we're going to watch a quick video of what were successes and why did it fail, and then we'll do number 3 in our notebook. All right, and that's the goal for today of where we'll stop. All right, so here we go. Articles of Confederation.
Yep, that was the first Constitution of the United States. You're probably wondering how we ended up in this predicament. Let's rewind a bit. British and American soldiers had already been engaging in battles in the Revolutionary War since April of 1775. The United States declared its independence on July 4th, 1776. But in all that time, one important piece of the puzzle was missing: a plan for government for the new country. Around the time the Declaration of Independence was signed in July of 1776, the question of setting up a new government was on the forefront of everyone's minds. A committee of men led by John Dickinson was given the job of drafting a plan for government, which they did, but it took the Continental Congress over a year of debate, discussion, and gathering inspiration from Benjamin Franklin's early plan, called the Articles of Confederation and Perpetual Union, before settling on a plan which they called the Articles of Confederation. Delegates agreed it wasn't a perfect plan, but Congress adopted it on November 15, 1777. Now it just needed to be approved. Fun fact: approval by all 13 states was needed before it could be ratified, and it would not be an easy or fast process. Delegates from 8 states ratified it on July 9, 1778, but it wasn't until Maryland finally ratified it on March 1, 1781, that the goal was achieved, over 3.5 years after it had been proposed. The 13 states were very nervous about giving power away to a national government. After all, they were breaking away from Great Britain and the King of England, who they on multiple occasions had called a tyrant, and the states weren't keen on giving any major power to a singular ruler ever again. Thus, the Articles of Confederation set up a weak central government with a single branch, Congress, which was mostly responsible for handling relations with other countries and declaring war as needed. States kept most of the power, which made them happy, but ultimately caused a lot of problems for the young country. Before we talk about the bad news, let's start with the good news. In Congress, each state received one vote, making every state equal, regardless of how big their populations were. Congress was given some important powers in the Articles of Confederation. They could manage relations with other countries and Native American tribes, issue money, borrow money, establish the post office, and maintain the armed forces. Now for the bad news. In creating a weak national government, the states had assured a tyrant couldn't rise to power. But that limited power came with other problems. First, agreeing to new laws required agreement by 9 of the 13 states, and approval of changes to the Articles of Confederation itself required agreement by all 13 states. Remember how long it took to approve the document in the first place? Yeah, agreement between the states didn't magically get easier after they won their independence from Great Britain. Additionally, Congress had no power to enforce laws or collect taxes. Yep, let that sink in. States had the power to enforce laws passed by the national government, or not. The national government was too weak to force states to carry out their laws. They could only ask nicely. Likewise, because Congress had no power to collect taxes, the national government didn't have a lot of money, which was a problem because the nation was in debt. The government could ask states for money, but the states were in debt too. States did have the power to tax their citizens, and they did, sometimes too much. The powers given to the national government were so limited, it could do nothing to stop it. Enter Daniel Shays, our friend from the beginning of our story. In 1786 Massachusetts, a storm was brewing. Business owners began demanding payments for goods farmers had bought on credit, and the government began raising taxes at the same time. When farmers couldn't pay their debts, they were arrested or found their farms taken away by the government. Farmers grew angry, and one, Daniel Shays, led a rebellion that escalated on January 25, 1787. On that day, 1,200 farmers marched into Springfield, Massachusetts to seize an arsenal. After a small skirmish, 2 farmers died and 20 were wounded. While the rebellion was short-lived, it shocked the nation because it showed the weaknesses of the national government under the Articles of Confederation. Something had to change if the United States government was going to survive past its early years. In 1787, 12 of the 13 states sent delegates to forge a new document, the United States Constitution, the very framework of the United States government today. Hey everyone, thanks.
Okay, so you can see there's some successes under the article, but there were a lot of failures. And to really sum it up, states had more power than the national government. So in essence, you had almost like 13 little mini independent countries that had the option to pay tax. They had the options to do this and that. So our federal government had no actual authority. It's kind of like having a speed limit, but if there's never anyone to get pulled over and give a ticket, let's be honest, are you really going to follow the speed limit? Probably not. A lot of people don't. Okay. So this to kind of give an analogy of what happened. So what were the failures? Okay. There were no courts. Okay. There was no court when there was a disagreement. There was no high authority to ultimately make the decision. There was no power by the federal government to levy taxes. They went in debt during the American Revolution. They owed money to a lot of countries, including France, a lot of money to France. There was no power to regulate commerce, trade. They couldn't raise an army. So if 10 states agreed to send soldiers, but 3 didn't, those other 10 states would be like, wait, why are we giving up, people to go and fight and die, but you aren't? It's going to feel unfair, right? If there's no consequence, if there's no ability to enforce, okay? States had a single vote based on their population. So remember, we talked about this last week, where in the new Constitution, there's going to be 3 branches of government. Originally, there was no president. There was no courts. There was just one Congress where every state got one representative. Now, it seems fair in some ways to the smaller states to have an equal say to the big states. But the problem this led to is if you have twice the people, that means you've got twice the needs, you've got twice the problems. It feels like you should have more of a say. So that's going to be one of the things that has to be changed when they rewrite the Constitution, okay? And in order to make any changes in the original articles, everyone had to agree. Well, I don't know about you. Even my best friend, who I agree with on a lot of things, there are things we disagree on. So the idea that anytime there's going to be change, everyone has to agree, right there, you're setting yourself up for failure. So let's look at the questions in, okay, answer the following questions. What are 3 specific weaknesses in the Articles of Confederation? Okay, there was no president. There was no judiciary branch to make the call when there's, disagreement. No power to levy taxes. No power to regulate. No power to have an army. Basically, you're just glorified sitting there looking pretty, but you can't actually do anything. Somebody has to be in charge. So this is number 3, and you can pull that from the chat. Second question, do you think the United States could have effectively governed under a unicameral Congress like the one established in the Articles of Confederation? Explain your reasoning. So by unicameral, what that means is the one Congress where every state had one representative. Despite population or whatever, everyone was equal as far as like figuratively speaking, okay? And we can see how on one hand, this is fair because every state, despite your size, population, you get a vote. But if you're a larger state, a larger population, that's at times going to feel unfair because you might have more issues. You might have more needs because you have more population. So then the argument of equality maybe being defined under majority versus just equal shape of the pie, we see that argument. In the new Constitution, we address both, right? We have the House of Representatives where it's based on population. The higher your population, the more representatives you get. In the Senate, it's like the old system where everyone is the same. Everyone gets 2 representatives. And the reason that we came to that compromise was because we wanted to make sure that the small states also didn't get railroaded, okay? So having a single Congress probably wouldn't work for a couple reasons. Population much larger in certain states, the need for more representation. Larger states weren't happy because, again, they felt like they should have more say versus the smaller states. Less people, less problems, more people, more problems. And there's some truth to that. Both have an argument. But if it's all based on population, right, then the larger states could railroad those small states, which wouldn't be fair. Okay, for today, this is where we're going to stop. Okay, so we went over our key essential question that we're going to finish answering tomorrow or on Thursday when we meet. So odd or even day, which we're in even class. How did the Constitution address the weaknesses? So we're going to talk about then the Federalist Papers and how then they take these issues and we start to rewrite and try to solve those problems. We went over our key vocab and then kind of summarizing what does this article look like and why did it quickly within 10 years we realized we made a mistake and we're going to have to revisit the drawing board. So tomorrow we'll open up class. We'll go over these checking for understanding questions, and then we will work on understanding the Federalist Papers and how the Federalist Papers help to shape the forming of the Constitution. All right. So that's it for today. I hope you have a great day. If you have any questions, stay behind. I can answer a question really quick. Otherwise, I will see you on Thursday working on this notebook. All right. So make sure you save it. All right. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Hey, Miss.